And I do think there's a football game next Sunday. That was a joke again, too. Thank you, Jane. Whoever, I got a little. Please remember that we started having our church business meeting and dismissing the evening service before they moved the Super Bowl to our Sunday. So one of these days we may have church on Sunday night when they play football, and you ought to be here instead of watching the Super Bowl. Amen. Just to let you know. We are not dismissing because it's Super Bowl Sunday. It's a process we started a long time ago, and I just want to remind you of that because we may have revival one of these times, and you need to be here. A good friend of mine, and I'm not being morbid, I'm just being real, buried his pastor yesterday, and this morning, preparing for his morning service, he got a call that one of his board members in his church had passed away. And I'm just telling you, there ain't no football game in the world that's more important to attend the night before you die. And since you and I don't know when that time comes for us, World Series, Super Bowl, soccer, lotto drawing, whatever, you need to take every advantage to be in the presence of the Lord. Today we finish our series called Resolved. Now, what we've done over these weeks, we have a series of things that we're talking about on Sunday morning. And I'll just explain a little bit of how I think, and you may think this way, you may not. But on Sunday morning, you all pretty much have your mind set on what's going to happen. Many of you have lunch plans, you have family plans. Sunday's kind of a family day. And most of you don't want to hang around much past, you might hang around to 12. But once noon gets here, there's a lot of bellies growling and a lot of kids crying and a lot of mamas that have plans. And so I understand that. So on Sunday mornings, I generally don't try to stir up a big evangelistic crusade and get everybody to come and pray for 2 or 3 hours, although there's nothing wrong with that, and we probably should do a little more of that. I get convicted sometimes because I fall into the rut of the schedule, and this fits us. And I think instead we need to ask God, what really fits with your idea here today, because He's the only one who knows what happens tomorrow. But anyway, that's kind of how I think, and I think it's mostly how you think. So on Sunday morning, it's easier to kind of teach more than really just strongly preach. And so on Sunday mornings during this resolved time, I've talked about the things that you need just to have your mind made up about. There are some things you need to settle it in your mind. And the term resolve, that word indicates that there's been some consideration that's been sifted through your brain. You've analyzed it. You've looked at the different options. And out of all your choices and options, you have made up your mind, this is it. And the best example I can find of that is marriage. There are a lot of men, a lot of women in the world, a lot of big, strong, husky men, a lot of beautiful ladies that can sing and whistle but you kind of look through them and you figure out this one, and it's a risk both ways, both men and women. Do I take a chance here? But finally, there comes a point where you make up your mind, out of the 7 billion that are on the planet, this is the one. I'm going to spend my life with this one. I'm going to honor my commitments to this one. And that leaves a whole bunch else out there, a whole bunch of other ones out there. But you've resolved, you've made up your mind, this is it. And if you're smart, you don't waffle on that. And you don't wonder, did I make the right choice? I didn't know this one when I married this one, and was that real? No, you make up your mind. This is the one I'm married to, and I don't care how many more you parade through here. We're going home together. We're building a life together, and this is us. If you don't have that mindset, your marriage is always going to be kind of wishy-washy, and if you're always looking for a better option, here's the sad fact. You get older, and you no longer become somebody else's better option. I hate to break that news to you, but there's not a big demand for slightly overweight, a lot of out of shape, broken down, living in the past, without a lot of money, men. See? I'm getting some amens already. Now, the Bible does talk about, I can't go there. The truth is, folks, the aging process catches up with it. You just need to latch onto the one you're committed to and stay there, resolved. And there are some other things in life besides marriage that we got to be that committed to as well. And we've talked about those on Sunday morning. But realizing that you get a lot of that from me. I'm a teacher by nature. I'm a pastor. And every time you come, I want to tell you what you need to do. That's kind of in me. And I know that you need more than just this is what you need to do. Sometimes you need some instruction on here's how you do that. So on Wednesday nights and a couple of times on Sunday night, we've tried to throw in some stuff that kind of helps you do that. For instance, we spent one Wednesday night talking about the benefit of coming to church and how that participating in the church services will give you what you need to live resolved the rest of the week. We talked about praise and worship. And while I preach and teach and it gets kind of dry, and during worship time like we've just experienced, you can get in touch with God and you can have the full range of experiences with God in an hour and a half on Sunday morning if you will diligently set your mind to. The presence of the Lord has filled this house. You can enter that presence and enjoy and feel His touch, and you can find forgiveness and help and healing and guidance and encouragement in the first 30 minutes as we worship. And then there's fellowship with each other. There's encouragement. We've experienced that as different ones have prayed with each other. There's that joining together of faith and strength. And then the preaching gives instruction and guidance. And so all of this all month long, I want you to see the whole picture. I don't want you to see it just as little bits and pieces that stand alone. But I've tried to not only tell you to be resolved, but to give you some guidelines and some help on how you can live that commitment out. And so this morning we come to the final day of our Resolved series. And we jump to Ephesians chapter 4. I talk about this occasionally. This morning I'm going to elaborate a bit. In Ephesians chapter 4, we read verses 26 and 27. It's a complete sentence from the pen of the Apostle Paul, and he says, "Be ye angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath, neither give place to the devil." Everybody say, "Be ye angry." Now, how many of you, when you were growing up, ever had your mama tell you, get mad? Anybody? My mama usually said, you get glad in the same clothes you get mad, so get glad. I don't ever remember going to school and having a teacher tell me, you need to get a little mad, you need to get angry. But generally they said, you need to calm down. Here the apostle says, be angry. And we interpret it through mama's eyes, and we say what that means is control your anger. Be angry, but don't sin. It's okay to get mad at your wife, just don't sin. Just let that kind of sit there for a minute, because how can you love your wife as Christ loved the church and be mad at her? So I'm not sure he's given us permission to be mad at each other. Leonard Ravenhill, who was a fiery Baptist preacher, wrote several books. Back in the 70s is when I ran across the first one. But he's the first one I ever really heard tackle this verse in this way. And Leonard Ravenhill said these verses are not telling us how to manage our anger, but telling us how to manage sin. Brother Ravenhill said, the apostle is saying, get mad at sin and don't sin. Get so mad at what sin does in the world and does to your life that you don't sin. Don't let the sun go down on that wrath. Keep it alive, keep it hot, keep it fired up. And don't give place to the devil. Don't give him room, don't give him opportunity. Because if you read this chapter, he's given instruction about personal life and personal choices. In verse 24, he's saying, put on the new man, which is after God created in righteousness and true holiness. Put away lying and speak every man with his neighbor truth. And then after verse 27, he says, let him that stole steal no more. And he goes on and says, let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth. And he's talking about our personal behavior. And so, Mr. Ravenhill said, he is telling us how to approach sin. I thought of that in a new light and realized he might be onto something. He might be onto something. Dave Ramsey thinks so. Y'all know Dave? Has the third largest syndicated talk show in the United States. 16 million people listen to him every week. And he talks about your what? About your money. About your money. I tried to find a clip, but Dave uses some popular slang, okay? And some of the words that he uses I didn't feel like would be appropriate for us to use here, because I wanted to give you the clip from his radio program. He also does some live casting, so you can get it live or you can go watch him in his office in Nashville area. But in one of he does this quite often, but he has a segment called the I've Had It part. Anybody familiar with the I've Had It? And he goes back and he quotes an old popular speaker by the name of Les Brown. And he says, Les Brown says, until you get mad and say, I have had it, nothing's going to change. All of the education, all of the experience, all of the knowledge that you can recite will not change your behavior. What will change it is when you get mad and say, I'm not going to do this again. And so today I want to talk to you about resolved. I am mad and I hate sin. I hate sin. We're all taught that we're supposed to love. But there are some things we need to hate. And first on the list is sin. Be ye angry and sin not. Understand, you're all dressed nice and you look good. And I know you've got plans and I know you've got life experiences. And I know that you have vision for the future. You're intelligent. You've come from a long line of good, hardworking people. But none of that is going to make a difference in your life until you decide emotionally, I am going to invest in something besides what I've been. And most of the time that emotion comes through an anger at what your current circumstances are doing to you. And we're all sitting here nice and dressed, but there's not one of us that can say what he's saying today doesn't apply to me, so I'll shovel that on over my shoulder. Every one of us live a life of our choices, and often because to confront the things that we don't like or we would like to change causes us to be more disturbed than just simply moving on with life as it is. What's going to change your life and your world is when you get mad enough and you say, as Dave Ramsey says, I have had it. This is it. And it must work for Dave because he's making a lot of money telling folks how to save their money. And he has on his program every once in a while somebody that will come in and they will stand up and he'll ask them, what is your I've had it moment? And they'll tell them at what point they reach the place where they said, I've had it, I'm not borrowing any more money, I'm not doing any more. Dave says his I've had it moment, one of them was when he was broke and had filed bankruptcy. All the bill collectors were calling, and American Express called and talked to his wife. And they asked his wife, why do you stay with a man that won't pay his bills? And he said, that was my I've had it moment. He says, 30 years later, I still hate American Express. I'm telling you, sin Sin will eat away at every one of us until we get mad enough that we change our ways. And just head knowledge and you can have 100 degrees on your wall and still be caught in the same old rut of everyday life. Because it's got to be something that's inside your emotion and stirs you to the point to where you say, I've had it, no more. And sin will eat away at you if you refuse to do that. The Bible talks a little bit more about this sin and this life of ours and how we've got to pay attention. And in John chapter 10, Jesus talked a bit, and he said that you got to understand the setting of this. He was telling, as Brother Glenn mentioned today, about the shepherd. He was using this illustration. The shepherd is over the sheep, and he keeps them safely inside the fold. And there's just one entrance into the fold, and the shepherd guards that entrance. And he says anybody else who comes other than through the door is a thief, and they're coming in. And he's talking about them, and he says in verse 10 of John chapter 10, he says, the thief cometh not, but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly. Jesus, as the shepherd, contrasted what he has to give to what the thief, the devil, tries to do with us. And I'm here to tell you that there is no intellectual or experiential event that will cause you to be transformed. It's got to be an emotional response to a challenge in your life. You've got to hate what sin does to you and to the world. The thief comes but to steal, kill, and destroy. And here's the sad part about us that I really want to talk to you about. We don't mess with the kill and destroy, but we let him steal from us all day long. We're not going to become drug addicted, no sir. But if we have to have a little something to help us rest and sleep, or if we have to, and we forget that the gateway to step up to the killing begins with the stealing. And so we let him steal our peace, and we let him steal our hope, and we let him steal our joy, and we let him steal our vision. And we tell ourselves we're doing well because he's not killing and he's not destroying here. We're not going to let him go there. But the fact is, until we get angry and realize what's happening to us and to our family and to our world, we're going to let sin eat inch by inch, eat away at us until he doesn't need to kill or destroy. We have had everything lost because he's stolen it, and we've got nothing left. When your joy's gone, when your peace is gone, when your contentment's gone, when your hope's gone, when your family's gone, why should he kill you? Just let you live and be tormented in your own misery because he's got you wrapped up. Folks, we need to realize sin is not our friend. The pleasures of this world do not bring into us the blessings of God. The momentary pleasure that we find while we get involved with all the things that appeal to the lust of our flesh, they are not building long-term spiritual benefits in our lives, but they are slowly eating away at the very foundation of the things that we treasure the most and hold dearest. And we don't have a problem with that because we'd rather not upset our neighbors. It's fine to come to a Pentecostal church, but we don't want them to think it's a radical Pentecostal church. We want to fit in, flow in. And we want to deal with everything from this intellectual level. And even Dave Ramsey tells you, just dealing with your money, you can't do it. So how do we think we can become strong spiritually? By doing things in a spiritual way that won't even allow us to manage our money right. You got to get mad. You can't worry about what your neighbors, your best friends say. Jesus said, I've come to set father against son, mother against daughter-in-law. He didn't say that he was coming to kill, to destroy. He just said somebody has got to get it down in their gut that it doesn't matter what anybody else does. I'm not going to live that way anymore. If mama doesn't like it, I'm sorry, mama, I love you, but I'm not going to live that way anymore. I'm not going to let my life be ripped apart, my world shredded, just because it might change some of the traditions that you want to hold, and it might mess up the way we do Christmas. There are some things that are more important. And my future and my family and my children and my sanity and my peace and my relationship with God, I'm not going to give an inch to the devil. I'm going to hate sin with as much force as I can muster. And I'm not going to go down that path where he just simply steals a bit here and there, and I'm content with that. There's nobody I know of who, when you call their name, 17 years old in high school, and you say, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be addicted to heroin and crack cocaine. That's what I want to be. I've heard kids joke, but I've yet to see the first one seriously say, that's what I want to do. I've never heard one say, what I really want to do is dip snuff till my lip just rots away from lip cancer. That's what I really have my mind set on. We don't say, I want to go broke, as much in debt as I can get. No, most kids have dreams, and they want to become something, and they want to do something, and they know where they would like to go. But what happens is they get caught into a world that tells them how wonderful all this other stuff is, and the party life that shows them the good side until they get in it. And they get caught in that, and they can't get out of it. And so they continue to perpetuate the behavior, and they don't get mad at the sin that has drugged them down or the circumstances they are in, and they don't stop to think long enough about why they are here and what we try to put put a face on everything. Look, there's no human that you can get mad enough about. You've got to get mad at the way that the devil has used people. To hate one another doesn't get us anywhere, but to hate sin gets to the root of the problem. But the things that we allow are the gateways to the things that trap us. And I remember listening to Jana and some of her teachers talking about some kids in their class. And I don't know how things are now. But back then, once a child got to a certain place in the school system, there was no more remedial help for reading. And once they got there, if they hadn't got it, they weren't going to get it. And they were talking about how there was one particular young man that was right on the borderline. And if he didn't get help then, he wasn't going to get it, because he wasn't getting help at home. And if he didn't get it from the system, it wasn't going to come. And one of the teachers who had been there longer said, that's exactly what happened to his two older siblings. They got to this same place. Wonderful kids, loved to learn. But once they didn't get what they needed, and they couldn't read, they moved on, and they got on the fringe over here with everybody else that was kind of wild, and they wound up getting caught in all the stuff that their parents were doing at home. And now they're just processed by the system, and they move on. They didn't start out being bad kids. Just somewhere along the way, they didn't have guidance and help. And at some point, there was no mama or daddy to stand up and say, I'm sick and tired of what's happening to my kids. I've watched two of my children go through the system and not get what they need, and I refuse to watch a third one. If I have to sit up every night and go through the elementary books and teach this child how to read. I'm going to, because I'm not going to let another one of my children get caught in that. But instead, mom and dad are caught in their own little bits where Satan's stealing and pulling from them. And we live in a culture that teaches us to accept rather than to fight back. And we've got all kinds of 12 steps and jump through these hoops. Folks, what we need to do is just get flat out mad at what the devil's doing to our world. The world that your kids are growing up in is not a friendly world. The place that you are living and the things that you're having to deal with at work, it's not about building strong families and strong communities, but you got to watch your back and you got to lock everything up, and you can't trust folks anymore. And we're not going to change it by voting for the Democrats or for the Republicans. And we're not going to change it through electoral processes. It's going to be changed when you and I individually get fed up with what's happening in our world, and we make a difference in our own lives and our own worlds. We have got to hate sin. We've got to hate sin. I tell you again, we cannot keep telling our kids it's okay to get involved to this line, just don't get past that. Because our kids are just like us in the fact that they are human. And when it comes to addictions and addictive behavior, we don't know where the line is with any of us. What you can smoke, drink, or snort, and then get up and walk away as if nothing happened after 2 hours, may be something that causes me to be forever hooked and connected. Our bodies respond differently. So we can't wait until our kids are in jail or they're in rehab to get mad. We've got to realize and recognize and set expectations now. Before they get there, before they have the first puff, you and I have got to speak up and teach them and train them and say, I'm not going to let you go down that road and let sin destroy you. And for those of us now who are grown and we see our family members caught in them, we can't just rock and say, well, I wish we'd have done something a little sooner. No, we got to sit up right now and recognize what the devil's doing in our world and say, I'm not having any more of it. I'm going to pray. I'm going to live my life. I'm going to walk the path so that the devil does not have an inroad into my life. I'm going to get angry and so mad that I refuse to fall prey to one of his enticing steps. And I'm never going to let the sun go down on that anger. Day or night, you look at me and you look at the world of sin around me, and I'm going to be resisting and hating and speaking against it and praying. And I'm not going to give the devil an inch in my life. My family may not like me. My children may not like me for a while. But can I tell you a secret? Don't look for affirmation from your children until they're about 35. And don't want or expect them to say thank you for all that you've done for me. Because if you do, somewhere along about 12 or 13, you'll start changing the way that you parent. And from that 12 to 22, your children need you, and they need a strong you as much as they ever did. Jesus, actually I think it's the prophet Isaiah, but you read, the Lord speaks to him and says, don't pay attention to their faces. You just preach. And I think sometimes moms and dads, you got to ignore their faces and you just got to preach. This is how it's going to be in our house. This idea that we've got to let our children develop their own identity has led us to the point that we now let our children tell us what gender they are. And we let 3-year-olds make up their gender. I'm neither boy, I'm not girl. Folks, there's a reason why you don't get your driver's license till you're 16. And there's a reason why you don't vote until you're 18. And there's a reason why you can't buy alcohol till you're 21. Still 21, isn't it? I haven't bought any lately. You know, there's a reason for that. And there's a reason why the American Bar Association has done studies in the fairly recent past proposing raising the voting age to 21 because of brain development. The human brain hasn't fully developed in the sense that it connects behavior with consequences until somewhere between the ages of roughly 20 and 24. And unfortunately, women get there before men do. I'm still trying to get there. Still waiting on some brain development. That's why girls' insurance goes down for automobiles at an earlier age than the males. Because after the girls have kind of figured it out, the men are still saying, hold my Coke. You know, it just takes a while longer. Men aren't stupider. Women aren't smarter. It's just brain development. It takes a while. You've got to have that many days. And yet we're letting 3-year-olds tell us whether they're a boy or a girl. Think about it, folks. It's stupid. At some point, you're going to have to stand up and say, it ain't happening in my house. I've got a little girl. And she's going to walk like a girl, act like a girl, behave like a girl. And I'm going to teach her. Hopefully you got a good wife that's helping you here. Because if you're a male, you're kind of stuck there, difficult. But Jackie Onassis was raised by a father. And I think as far as femininity goes, I think she did okay. You young folks have no clue. So the neighbors may disagree with the way my kids dress, but I'll tell you something, I'm not dressing my family, and I realize they're all old enough to do however they want to do. But I'm not doing that to win contests among popularity, folks. I'm not trying to fit into the latest magazine. I'm trying to help my kids grow to have a strong relationship with God and to stay as far away from sin as they can. And to not let Him begin by stealing little things away from them. And so if I have to be looked at as an outsider, bring it on. Because none of you are going to die for me. None of you are going to have the flu for me. None of you are going to pay my bills for me. So why should I build my life around what you think about me? When the Bible's very clear that God will bless people who will walk in His ways, God will bring peace and God will bring honor and God will bring His glory upon those who will honor His word. And so I'm not talking about being a knot-headed renegade just for the sake of being different and being weird. I'm just saying be committed to God's word and hate sin because it will destroy all of the things that you value and love the most. And it will suck it away. Church security. How's that fit in here? Everybody talks about, being ready for a shooter that comes in. But do you realize the odds are you'll get hit by lightning twice before a church shooter will just wander in? But that 1,000 churches every month are being sued by their members? And so while everybody's all up in arms, we got to get guns and we got to go shoot and we got to have people with guns everywhere in the church. There are a lot of churches that don't keep records. They don't give tax receipts. They don't have minutes at the business meetings or don't have business meetings at all. But I guarantee you right now there's a whole bunch of those very people that are having seminars about who has to have a gun and all this. We kind of like the things that appeal, and we everybody wants to have a gun and be the big guy. We want to protect ourselves from the big bad threats, but we let all the little bitty things come up and eat life away from us. We're all prepared. I won't dare ask how many guns are in here today. But if somebody comes in, I'm hitting the ground because I know that there's going to be some errant shots, and I'm hoping one of them. Because that's in our mind, because it's a great big thing. We treat sin the same way. We treat sin the same way, the big stuff, the big threats. Oh, we're good because that hasn't happened. But it's the little bitty stuff that eats away at us. It's the little bitty stuff. So at our business meeting, you might ask, is the church board, well, we got guns, we got a security plan, and we can talk about that, but you also need to pay attention. Are we issuing tax receipts to people? Are we having proper business meetings? Are we doing what our bylaws say? Because 1,000 churches a month are finding that's not happening in their churches. So I picked on me a little bit as a church leader. Took the heat off you for a minute, but I'm putting it back on you here. We think as long as they don't come home stoned, as long as we're not having to bail them out, as long as the school's not kicking them out, we're doing good. But can I tell you, if you don't develop a hate for sin, this culture is going to suck your children right into it. I could go on for a long time because I get really irritated. We have a culture that screams at us about misusing women and treating women as sex objects. And then, from the time they're little bitty in school, what do? We prance our girls out there in the skimpiest things we can find for them, and we have them dance to all kinds of music. And we're basically telling them, if you'll take what you've got and show it to everybody, they'll clap for you and they'll cheer for you. We're talking out of both sides of our mouth as a culture. We're telling our children, flaunt it, at the same time, tell them, oh, don't pay attention to it, leave it alone, stay away from them. I hate sin. I hate what it's doing to our world. And I tell you often, this current generation of women, according to one of the top researchers right now that's not doing it from a religious standpoint, says they're the most addicted, most overweight, and most in debt group of ladies that's ever been on the planet. And she says every bit of it goes back to their sense of self-worth. And I'm telling you, sin. It's sin. We're okay with that because it's just stealing. The devil's not killing and destroying. He's just stealing. But I'm telling you, I'm not good with that. I don't want the women and the young ladies in our church to grow up in any other mindset except they are the best that God's ever created. They are the top of the line. They're royal. They're regal. They're to be treated like ladies. They're to be elevated above the commonplace. But you can't have them dancing out half naked and the crowd cheering them and telling them they're a princess and a queen at the same time. The two don't match up. And at some point, you got to decide which is going to be which. And it's going to take a little bit more than just an intellectual discussion. It's going to take something that gets down inside of your heart and says, my little girl's not going to grow up that way. She may not have the best that life has, but she's going to know that God holds her in the highest estimation and that it's not what she has that she can flaunt that she's soon going to age out of that's going to make the difference in her life. But it's her relationship with God. It's her relationship with her husband and family. It's her relationship with her children. Those are the things that are going to bring her self-worth, going to bring her self-esteem, and make her in a relationship with God that will provide heaven for her. I tell you, you got to get mad, folks. You got to hate sin. Our world is going to come to the place, and it's coming very quickly. In Virginia, there's a bill now presented before their state legislature that you cannot speak negatively about the elected officials. There's already been some things passed in California about preachers being able to address certain subjects. In Canada, you cannot preach against homosexuality. Sometimes you just have to get mad and say, look, I don't care what happens. There's some right and there's some wrong. And it's not just a matter of getting to heaven. It's a matter of having a decent life. It's a matter of my peace. It's a matter of my children's sense of a future and their own self-esteem. They've got to have the relationship with God and know who they are. And if we just patty cake along with the world, why are we surprised when all the world's troubles move into our house? And all the stuff we read in the newspaper and we see advertised as problems in the community on television through the media, when it becomes our issue, why are we surprised at it? Because we've just been accepting everything they pass to us. And when they pass things to you, they don't just pass the purity. You know, it all comes, right? When you tip back I don't know what those drinks are. I told you I'm an uneducated guy. But I sit in El Patio and I watch them make these drinks, and they look neat. Little umbrellas in them and some olives stuck on some things. And the movies have a lot of neat ones. And they say they taste really good. But the problem is, when you drink it, the negative effect that it's going to have on you comes with the good taste. You can't filter it out. It just, boom, there it is. You get it all. And the same things with the world. We accept whatever the world shoves into us, and we take the good in, but with it comes a whole lot of bad. I've just kind of rattled to you here. I don't feel like I've even preached what I had in my notes. But I hope you've caught the message here. You've got to resolve it in your mind. I hate sin, and I hate what it's doing to me. I hate what it does and what it's done to my family, and I hate what it does to my neighbors. And while I cannot change the world, I can change me. The only way I can change me, Dave Ramsey says, is to get mad and say, I've had it. I've had it. Because an intellectual decision that, yes, I need to change isn't going to change anything. I've made that every day since I had my heart attack. I went from 219 to 28, and I'm back to 214. I know in my head what I need to do. What I'm trying to do now is to get it in my gut to where I say, I'm not going to have another one of those things. I'm not going to put my family in a situation where they have to wonder what's happened to me. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not there yet. It's in my head. It's in my head. But it's not got inside my emotion and my gut to where I'm mad about it. Till you get mad at sin, it's going to be just like that. You're going to know in your head, well, yeah, and you're going to look up a year from now and you're still struggling along with the same old things. You need to resolve it and settle it in your mind. I hate sin. I hate sin. And I mentioned it may cause me, like I mentioned, my family dressing differently and not fitting in with everything in the world. It may cost some of that. Your issue may not be daughters you're raising. Yours may be totally different. But I'm telling you, if you're wanting to fit into the community standards with your issue, you're going to just carry your issue with you. If fitting into the community is more important than dealing with your issue, then just buy you whatever you need to help you cope with your issue because it's going with you. But if you really want to change, if you're really sick and tired of what's happening in your life, you need to get mad at what sin is doing. Understand me, not mad at your wife or your husband, not mad at your children, but mad at the devil that is causing the things to happen in your world that is affecting your wife or your child or your husband or your neighbor. But it's got to be more than just a head, I know I need to change. So I'm going to invite you to stand with me today. And I just had a discussion with some of the young preachers, and I told them when you preach a sermon, before you preach, know what you want people to do when you're finished. And I'm breaking that rule because I have no clue what I want you to do except just get mad. I want you to take a minute and realize that this world is not your friend. That's why we sing the song, It's Not My Home. Nobody's going to live your life for you. Nobody's going to feel the pain of your life for you. You're going to bear it by yourself. And it doesn't have to be a life of pain and struggle. It can be a life of God's peace and God's joy and God's contentment and God's hope. But you're going to have to keep on pushing until you get there. And it starts with having one of those I have had it moments. It's not going to happen again. I hate sin. I hate sin. And I have no clue what they can sing that goes along with hating sin. We could write our own I hate sin song, I guess. But we've still got a few minutes. I didn't preach as long as I did last week. We've still got 3 or 4 minutes before the kids are going to be dismissed. And I invite you, as they just start to play some music and sing, I invite you now to move out. If you're tired of what the world's doing to you and your family, you're going to have to act on it whether anybody else does or not. You're going to have the guts from inside that's emotionally driven, not intellectually debated, but you're going to have to make up your mind. I'm not having it anymore. And if that's in your mind, I encourage you to come this morning. And see, I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, well, I feel that way right now because he's up there talking about it and he's making me mad and getting... But what about tomorrow? I don't know if I'll feel this way and I don't want to make a fool of myself. That's that same old voice telling you again. You're stuck here and this is where you're going to be, making excuses about it. At some point you're going to have to get mad and say it's not happening anymore. And if I mess up tomorrow, I'm going to get up and I'm going to make it even worse on the devil because I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to stop. From somewhere down inside, you've got to muster up enough righteous indignation that you're going to change your life. And right now in the month of January, making resolution, resolve it. I hate sin, and I'm not going to give it an inch in my life or my family. Whatever you want to do with it, folks, it's there. But it's going to have to be an emotionally based gut decision that I am going to change because I hate sin.
It's a struggle for survival as we daily meet the foe. We're out here on the battlefield. At times we stand alone. That's when we reach for our holy armor, pick up our shield of faith. We march on to the battlefield, pick up our sword and say, the mountain's high, but it's not too steep, and the battle is rough, but I'm not too weak, and I won't turn back. No, I won't turn back. The road is hot, but it's not too long, and the enemy is near, but he's not too strong, and I won't turn back. No, I won't turn back. The mountain's high, but it's not too steep, and the battle is rough, but I'm not too weak, and I won't turn back. No, I won't turn back. And the road is hot, but it's not too long, and the enemy is near, but he's not too strong, and I won't turn back. No, I won't turn back. In the face of strong resistance, we press on through the night. Through up and on the battlefield, we walk by faith, not sight. That's when we march on through persecution, determined come what may. We have to fight the good fight. We have to keep the faith. The mountain's high, but it's not too steep, and the battle is rough, but I'm not too weak, and I won't turn back. No, I won't turn back. And the road is hot, but it's not too long, and the enemy is near, but he's not too strong, and I won't turn back. No, I won't turn back. The mountain's high, but it's not too steep, and the battle is rough, but I'm not too weak, and I won't turn back. No,